Thank you for tuning in to the Black Money Tree Podcast, hosted by entrepreneur, investor, and philanthropist Jerome D. Love. We are committed to teaching you how to build wealth so that you can build your community. At the Black Money Tree, our goal is to empower wealth creation and create economic self-sufficiency in order to empower generations to come. Society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never enjoy. Season 1 is powered by Wells Fargo Bank. Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast. I'm your host, Jerome D. Love, and I'm super excited about this initiative because we are going to empower you to build wealth so that you can build your community. Recently, I had a conversation with my son, and man, it just made my heart just bubble over with joy. He came home from school one day and he walked into my office and he looked at me with a very serious look. And he says, "Dad, I want to learn how to play basketball." Now, as a young African-American man who grew up watching Michael Jordan and had his own hoop dreams, but didn't quite get there, man, this was my opportunity to live my dreams through my son. So I was super excited. I went to YouTube. I looked at the latest drills and techniques of training youth. I called a couple of my friends that were actually high school basketball coaches to learn the techniques and different things to do. And then I took them off to the basketball court and I taught him how to square up. I taught him how to keep his elbow in when he shot. I taught him all the fundamentals and the things that I knew about basketball. But I was a little bit frustrated because every time we would break, he would run out to the three-point line, spin around, and throw up a shot that would be an air ball, and he would yell Steph Curry. You know, he wanted to do three-pointers. He wanted to do Euro steps, but he didn't have a solid foundation. And I had to tell him, son, you got to build your foundation if you want to go to that level and get to where you want to be. And I thought about that, and that's the way many of us are. We say we want to build wealth, but we don't have the foundation. We watch a lot of HGTV. We look at Instagram and YouTube and see the lifestyles that other people are living, but we haven't built our foundation. Now, for me personally, one of the first things that I did once I got out of college was I bought a house, real estate. And to me, real estate is that solid foundation that anybody that's trying to build wealth needs to establish. So today, I'm really excited about our guest who's going to help us in facilitating this conversation. He really needs no introduction. Mr. Ron Devoe, he is the broker and owner of Devoe Real Estate in Atlanta, Georgia. But most of us know him from the iconic group Bell Biv Devoe, BBD, as well as New Edition. He has a passion for helping individuals to increase their financial net worth through home ownership. So with no further ado, Ron, welcome to the Black Money Tree Podcast.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Let's raise the energy up in here, Jerome, man. Thank you. Thank you for such a warm welcome. And the story about your son was even more touching, you know, knowing that I have 2 4-year-old boys, twins right now, and trying to navigate how to raise them up correctly the right way. Just hearing stories like that and how you connected with your son is just amazing, man.
Well, thank you, man. That really means a lot.
And Ronald Boyd Devoe Jr. is the owner of Devoe Real Estate. I have an amazing broker, Marvetta Bozeman. Yes, she is the queen and she cracks a whip as far as the company is concerned, but that's in a good way, man. She's passionate about what she does. She's a hell of a businesswoman. Education is one of the main things that she passes down to all of the agents that deal with clients and customers across Atlanta and the country for us. So I definitely have to recognize her as well.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Now, of course, most people know you from New Edition, but you wear many hats. You're an entrepreneur. So let's go back before we really get into the real estate conversation and what you're doing now in entrepreneurship. And let's talk about how you grew up. What, if anything, did you learn and did you know about money? What did your parents or the people, wherever you got your information, what did you learn about wealth and money growing up in Boston, Massachusetts?
Yeah, I learned that wealth and money was scarce right? It was something that we didn't have, but at the same time, as a child, what you don't have, you don't miss, right?
Yeah.
My mom definitely did everything that she could, working 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. The projects of Boston, Massachusetts, right? Cathedral on one side is my mom and my grandparents. On the other side is my dad and my grandparents, right? How do we navigate this concrete jungle and knowing all of the pitfalls and traps that were set up for people like us to fail? So money was scarce, to say the least.
So should I take that as you really didn't learn anything about money or how to manage it? You just learned how to survive without.
Exactly. As a youngster, 3, 4, 5, and of course, by the time I was, I want to say 11, 10, 11, I started being bussed out to the suburbs, right? And I was in this program called the MECO program. And I started seeing and being able to think outside the box, right? I had a host parent. And just in case I got into an accident or something like that, there was a family that would take care of me until my mom was able to get there. This was probably about 40 minutes outside of Boston, right? Maybe 30 minutes. And going over their house, right? And seeing the room that they had, the upstairs, the downstairs, right? Space, a backyard, a playground, right? A creek in the back, right? This kind of began to broaden my horizons. I still didn't connect money to it at that time, but I felt like, okay, now there's something more than just the concrete jungle that's out there.
So let's talk transitioning, new edition. What age
Mm.
were you when that really started popping off and when you got your first real, I guess, taste of money? However you define it. How old were you and you got some real money and what did you do with that money?
Oh man, my first real check was $500, right? And it was the record deal that we signed for Candy Girl to come out in 1983. So this was about 1982, about a year prior. $500 was all we received from the proceeds of that album that has been selling till this day, right?
Yeah.
But come on, I didn't have money. I'm pulling on my mom's coattail to try and figure out how she can hand me some allowance that might be $2 or $3 a week, right? So now all of a sudden I have 500. A moped, I was probably 13 at the time. So the first thing I bought was a moped for probably about 250 bucks maybe at the time. And man, that was the best thing that I could ever have as a 13-year-old. Like the 5 of us would just ride all around Boston. People would see us coming up and down the street and they'd be cheering like New Edition is, riding by us. They're following us. As a kid, 13-year old, right? All of a sudden you can buy a moped. So yeah, my first piece of money, that's what I did with it.
Wow, wow, wow. I remember in the BET special, they had that part in there.
Yeah.
And I believe they positioned it as the label gave you guys the moped, but you actually bought your own moped.
Nah,
So
we bought our own mopeds. Yes, go ahead.
okay. So, me growing up, Ron, I had two brothers, older brothers. I was the youngest, two older brothers and a sister. And we would always talk a lot of times like, how much money do you think mom and daddy had? And I remember somebody said $1,000 and I was floored. I thought a
Mm.
thousand dollar was like probably $1,000,000. I was like, no way mom and daddy have $1,000. So when you got that $500, did you feel like you were rich and you never needed to work another day in your life? Or did you have any understanding of that's really not that much?
No, $500. You go from five and then you put another zero on the back of that, right? Allowance and then another zero on the back of that. 500. We done hit the jackpot, ma.
Yeah.
It's time to move. It's time to load up the truck and move to Beverly, right? So, man, as a kid at the time that really didn't have much, and my mom was doing all she can. At times we didn't have enough money to fill the apartment up. We would stay at some point in these 3-family homes, right? And you had to have the oil truck come and fill your tank up so that you could have heat in the house, right? There were times where we were cold as hell because money wasn't available to us, right? So now all of a sudden I have $500 as a kid in my pocket. And of course, maybe half of that I gave to my mom for bills that might have been outstanding. I didn't understand really what was going on at the time, but she said, look, you can buy the moped and have some pocket change. The rest is coming to me. But I didn't have any concept of how to save, and how to take a piece of that money, invest it in something so that it grows and you start this real financial journey in life. That I didn't have that as a blueprint. This was trap after trap after trap that you're gonna fall into so that you stay on a certain level in life. And yeah, that's what was going on at the time.
Ron, now, when did you buy your first house? And did you ever get enough money as a child? Were you able to move your mom and your family out of the projects? When did you buy your first house?
Yes, come on, give me my roses, Jerome. I need these, right? Because I was the first one out of the New Edition crew to move my family out of the projects, right? Out of Boston, as a matter of fact, right? To Los Angeles, California, with the intent to buy a house. So 1982, I signed the deal, right? Candy Girl comes out 83. We blow up, we're off to the races. 1986, I moved to California. And we moved there with the intent to figure out where we wanted to live. Let's rent something and, kind of figure this thing out. So a year later, we finally bought a home in Woodland Hills, right? 1987, $200,000 home. I'm a part of the process of actually handing my mom some keys to a house, right? This is something that I didn't see in my family at all. Cousins, aunties, uncles, grandparents, great grandparents. I didn't know home ownership. I didn't know that. I didn't see that. It was rent, 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 rent projects, single family, whatever. Not single family, but apartments, right? Whatever that was, I didn't know ownership. And to be able to do that at 17, almost 18 years of age was incredible. But I didn't even know the magnitude at that time until later on what it really meant. Because that home that I purchased in 87 for $200,000, I sold about 3 years later, right? And just before 90, or maybe at the beginning of 90, before I bought my second house, for $400,000 in 3 years. Yeah, and that's the equity, right? That's the thing that allows people to do so much when it comes to creating generational wealth. And I know we're going to talk about that.
So no, that's a good transition there. Now, your real estate company has a Keys Unlock Dreams initiative, and you've partnered with the National Fair Housing Alliance. Talk a little bit about that initiative and what you guys have going on there in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, Keys Unlock Dreams. That is the National Fair Housing Alliance. That is their initiative, and we partner with them. Lisa Rice and all the amazing people over there are doing so much to really pull the stats out and show people what's going on and why the disparities between white, Asian, who are sitting up here in the 70 percentile and even 80 percentile home ownership, right? And Blacks being the lowest of them, the least of them, the lowest on the totem pole, sitting at 40%, right? Fluctuating. And when you think about the Fair Housing Act that was passed in 68, right? We were probably about 47 to 49% home ownership rates, right? Now, all of a sudden, people are not supposed to discriminate against us, right? So our numbers are supposed to rise based on those things. Now we can purchase homes. You can't not give us loans. You can't tell us we can't move in this neighborhood and all of the above. So providing the stats, and you look at 68, right? Fast forward to a point where the home ownership rates are lower than they were back then. So what really is going on with the fabric of the systems that are in place here in this country for Black people at the end of the day? So they are the problem, right? They are the stats, and they are alongside us the reason why we're getting this out to people state to state. Like when I move into cities now, it's no longer about just performing, right? Earlier in that day, we're going to do some things and make sure we get the word out for people so that they're able to take advantage of this thing called generational wealth and home ownership, and what we can do to shine a light on making sure we partner up with the right people that are willing to push those things to the side that have been barriers for us for so long, in our lives.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to say millennials, but it's not all millennials. I have a good friend who's actually going to be on the podcast. He builds neighborhoods. He has a finance company. And I was talking to him. He's an older guy. He's older than me. And I was talking to him about this trend of millennials wanting to rent as opposed to own. And they say things like they want to remain mobile. They don't want that much responsibility. And I was saying it to him as though he was going to chime in like, no, that don't make any sense. But then he says, no, I don't own my home either. He said, I want to remain mobile. I'm renting. Now, this is a guy who builds homes. He has a mortgage
Wow.
company. So with that said, I'm not knocking it. Everybody has different ways of building wealth. But what do you say to that young millennial that say that's too much for me? I don't want that much responsibility. I want to remain mobile. What do you say to that person?
Man, that's tough because when you're young, you want a certain sense of freedom. I think there's a sense of freedom attached to being mobile, right? So, of course, that's a hard thing to address. But then when you look at the disparities, when you look at taking a piece of what it is that you do, whether it's investing in stocks or what have you, you should invest in something. And I know that there's about, I want to say maybe 2 million millennials, college students that are ready and primed and will be approved like that if they just took the steps, right, to go down that road of home ownership. And it just seems as though there's a disconnect, right? And maybe that's on purpose. I know a lot of millennials went through some traumatic things through their parents' eyes to a certain extent, with the crash and the housing bubble in '08. So it's a heavy dynamic, but I think we have to stay doing shows like this and getting the word out so they can be educated on what they're actually missing out on, right? A college student, okay, if you're able to purchase the dorm, or not at the dorm, but the house that you're staying in, the apartment that you're staying in, right? And you purchase it for whatever that amount is, right? And you're able to hold on to it because you purchased it right. You sat enough money to the side. You're not living kind of, check to check. You've done what you're supposed to do to make sure this could be a successful transaction, right? And you're able to hold on to that year after year. That becomes an income producing property, right? And it's
Yeah.
appreciating in value. It's like, I think there's just such a disconnect because movies and music and entertainment and all these other things are bombarding us, right? And the real essence of what we need to be doing is the thing that likes blurred lines at the end of the day. So that's why I'm excited about really rebranding the real estate company and getting out here and talking to people such as yourself and using whatever my notoriety and influence may be to let people know, like, let's not miss out on this thing. Like, there's too much money out here. People that own homes, generally about 200,000, plus in wealth, right? In wealth,
Yeah.
right? You can say wherever that's in, right? Whatever that's in, it's savings, it's life insurance, it's various things. 200,000 on average. Renters, 5,000 plus. on average. So you want to have a mobile mentality, right? The numbers say, okay, you're just kind of check to check, 5,000 in the bank or what have you. But homeowners, 200,000. So you kind of, you be the choice. You make the choice. I'm choosing 200,000 over 5K any damn day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Black Money Tree podcast. Don't forget to like and share this video. And if you want more content like this, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next time.